6.5 is on the road at AWS reInvent 2023 here in Las Vegas. We are in the IBM Client Lounge, just lounging it up here, talking about partnerships, technology, and the ever-growing alliance between AWS and IBM. Daniel, it's great to see you, buddy.
It is good to be here. It's been a busy week, and as it always does, the reInvent show is a little bit bigger than it was last year, and the sprawl is a little bit bigger, as I'm coming to find out as I'm trying to get from point to point here. But it's been a big day for AWS. Announcements galore. We like to say from chips to SaaS, and of course, partnerships, hybrid cloud and AI, as our friends at IBM here would say, and of course, the relationship between IBM and AWS is on full display.
It is, and we saw it really grow starting last year, and let's get a check-in. Roger, great to see you. Deepak, welcome to the 6.5.
Thanks for having us.
Absolutely.
Pleasure.
Well, we started off where we want to finish at least this next question. IBM and AWS. Look, a year ago, Roger, I think we sat down with you and you started kind of walking us through this. And the pace of the partnership had turned. It was the next gear.
Yeah.
And we're hearing some buzz in the air here. I mean, talked to some of the GMs across AWS. They're glowing about the partnership with IBM. Talk a little bit about how the partnership is accelerating, how it's changing, and what's new this year.
Yeah. First, I think to begin with where you began. It's the extension of a trend, right? We've really made AWS a strategic partner for IBM. It's a place where we want to invest, and across all of IBM's businesses, we're collaborating with AWS. And so if it's our consulting business, where we have a rapidly growing practice, one of our fastest growing practices for IBM Consulting, we'll talk about IBM Software, where we're bringing more of our SaaS titles to AWS. And even our infrastructure business, where we're collaborating on things like mainframe modernization. Every part of IBM is collaborating with AWS, and that's what makes it such a special partnership.
Deepak, you've been all over AWS. We talked in the, I guess we'll call it the green room, about how many times maybe we crossed paths, but maybe didn't. Yeah. But you've been all over AWS and some really important stuff from, the beginning days of EC2 to containers and many different things. How about from your point of view, maybe answering that same question that Roger did?
Yeah, I'll actually go back to a company that's part of IBM now, but started before. Back when I was on EC2, I worked very closely with Red Hat, and then obviously on the containers side, worked very closely with Red Hat. And then Red Hat joined IBM, and that's actually part of the relationship too, and it's done exceptionally well. So I'll start there and then get to some of the things that Roger talked about, where my first, I would say, IBM-AWS partnership was working on Red Hat OpenShift on EKS, so on Amazon, the Rosa product. We have customers. We talked about one just a few minutes ago, USAA, a joint partner that's using Rosa and other services on AWS, and it's great to see how that has grown. But what gives me tons of pleasure and excites me a lot, and Roger and I have been working together for 2 years now, is how things like the core database with DB2 is now part of RDS. One of the things that so many of our customers come to us and ask us for is, how can they run the databases they've run for a long time, but as a managed AWS service? And the one that was clearly missing was DB2, and the fact that we were able to announce it at reInvent this year, that's awesome for me. And the consulting business has been one of the most successful partnerships that I've seen between us and any partner, and how well it's grown. But seeing, just personally seeing DB2 within RDS and what it'll mean for customers is amazing.
Yeah, it was a big surprise to me. But again, I keep getting surprised by what the two of your companies are doing together. Roger, I think you pulled me and Dan into a room to kind of go through this, right before some of the big announcements last year. I'm like, okay, I totally didn't expect this. And this is I think it's a good sign for the market, the maturing market, where the two of you are focused on clients, right? And what do they want? And IBM's set of clients wanted certain things, and they wanted integration, and the two of you just got together and did the right thing. And I'm a little surprised DB2. So there we go again. But maybe I'm just not paying attention. I'm not a good analyst or something. I can't predict these things. I don't know.
I think you're doing okay, Pat. I think the challenge right now is that the enterprise scale that cloud and AI is creating is making companies have to think really hard about how they engage, the vendor engagement model. And they want simplicity. And of course you've got a generational shift going on, younger CIOs and CTOs leading companies. They like consuming in marketplace, which is a really important part of, I think, the partnership you two have had is making things more consumable. So as these companies are really trying to navigate these complex landscapes, knowing that their partnerships are close, they're accessible, they have simplicity, and they can get answers, and whether they have a challenge with IBM or AWS, they can go to either, and friction is removed, problems are solved. But Pat and I sort of have a running joke, it's becoming almost a diatribe on this show about AI, because we just can't do a video. You and I did a video about your AI fund. I mean, we can't get 5 minutes into a video anymore on any topic without ending up back on AI or generative AI. It's such a big thing, but organizations are really trying to overcome the AI challenge conundrum. It's not all just Gen AI, but let's talk about that for a minute. Deepak, I'll start with you.
Yeah.
How are you approaching this? What are the challenges that you're seeing companies face when they're implementing generative AI?
Yeah, you started with all the things I've done at AWS, so guess what I do now?
I knew it. You're
yeah,
always in the hot spot.
yeah,
I think there's a trend here.
So I run the Amazon Q team, the developer experience team today, right now. And in overall with generative AI. So I'll bring it to, and sort of and we'll segue on to some of the amazing work that our two companies are doing together, especially on the consulting side with watsonx. I think your point that every CIO in the world is trying to figure out, 5 minutes seems too long in a conversation to get to AI these days.
I know, we're slow.
And if I go to just the conversations I've had today, or the last couple of days, some people have started, but what they need is help to figure out how do we actually take this and make something meaningful out of it. So obviously on the AWS side, and I'll talk a little bit about that, we have a suite of products, right? You heard Adam talk about the silicon part of the stack, the parts where you can get models in, whether it's in SageMaker, where you can get a variety of models, or the more curated foundation models in Bedrock, all the way to the apps that you can run on top, like Amazon Q, just to toot my own horn for a second. But I think the key is they're looking for people who can help them go from, here's an idea, here's where I think we can work, to actually making something meaningful out of it. And I think that's where IBM comes in. IBM has a long history in machine learning and artificial intelligence, decades long history. We like saying at Amazon, we've been doing it for 25 years. IBM has done it even longer. And I think and we've seen it, a number of people on the IBM side who've got certified on the generative AI and AI side on AWS, is that there's a compelling need for customers to work with two partners they can trust to help figure out how do you go from I don't know what to do to we are making our organizations that much more productive. And some of the work that Roger and the IBM folks have done over the last year in expanding and what they can do on AWS is a big part of that. Roger, you want to expand on some of the work that's been happening?
Yeah, I think, Deepak, to start where you were, I think we're seeing a world in which there are so many of these POCs happening in generative AI. Some of those have made to some scaled pilots, but many of them haven't made it to true production impact and really changing the trajectory of businesses. So I think as CIOs think through how to actually execute that in their business and really get business value out of generative AI, I think that's where we come together. So we talked about watsonx. So we have clients that want to do AI in their data center, but they also want to do it on AWS. So most of our clients have said, I'll start with a vendor with an API in any location, but eventually I want to bring that generative AI to where my application, my data, my workflow is. And for so many of those customers, that is on AWS. So that's why watsonx, pieces of it are already available on AWS. We're going to be GAing additional components, watsonx.governance or on AI governance in December. So we're continuing to to GA that software on top of AWS because that's where clients want to deploy that technology. And then some of the capabilities we have, if it's in the governance space, right? You know, to Deepak's point, we do have a long track record of doing AI responsibly and have led on governance. They want to bring some of those capabilities, so as they build AI with AWS, they can bring some of that governance differentiation, or if it's other components of the AI stack from IBM together. So I think it's just a natural part of our partnership. And in a world where there's still clients that, you know, they're still growing in a data center, but their cloud vendor of choice is AWS, the natural partner to help them with that is IBM.
So is there symmetry, meaning IBM clients need help and you introduce a unique capability AWS has, and AWS has some customers that you see that IBM has some unique customers? Is that how this relationship's working?
Both ways. I mean, sometimes it starts because AWS has a client. I mean, I would say one of the ways that it happens, and even DB2 is an example of that, is some team in a company decides they're going to start using AWS heavily, and from there that usage expands. Then you get to the teams that have applications on premises or have been using IBM software for a long time. Today, the fact that there's IBM software available on AWS as services suddenly makes it, hang on, we can also start moving our applications over. Oh, by the way, we have to wait, but we can't move our database over. That's changed.
Yeah.
And now you can expand that to, we have AI practices or AI applications that we want to run. And we may have started on AWS, or there may be a mix, and IBM's such a natural partner to help them do that, because they've been working with them for years. They know them, they trust them. And the other side is the one that Roger just talked about. You have folks who are IBM customers but have chosen AWS as their primary cloud provider. That transition makes it a lot easier. So that both paths are ones that I would say you see about the same. Okay. Yeah.
I just add on, I mean, where you're starting from though, is I think clients are trying to execute their digital transformations, and now more than ever it's become clear that I was just with a large automotive company a couple of weeks ago, if you're not on a path to have in-car experiences, self-driving, automated manufacturing, all these things that you'll need to compete in that industry, if you're not successful on that digital transformation, it's not like it was maybe a few years ago. That is success or failure for the overall business. And so the partnership we have together, you know, it's helping clients accomplish that, because it does have data center, it does have IBM technology, it does have AWS. And so when there's so much value to be created for our clients, there's so much for us to partner around. And so that's why, I mean, if it's generative AI with watsonx or the Q services, and so much else from AWS, or if it's all the other pieces of the IBM business or the AWS business, we bring those together to help the clients accomplish that digital transformation. And I think we are truly seeing that over the next several years, kind of that technology adoption is truly part of what will pick winners and losers in a variety of industries around the world. So, you know, we're really motivated to help our clients through that as well.
You know, you said something kind of interesting, but, you know, homogenous environments just aren't going to exist, you know, and especially unless you're literally birthing a business today and starting it ground up and saying, you know, like, and so as you kind of mentioned that you could be Watts, it could be Q, like, how do you kind of resolve for that? That's one of the things, you know, I'm really interested kind of in getting your off the cuff answers is, how do you resolve for the fact that, you know, there's so much overlap, but yet these very heterogeneous environments require it, and partnering is necessary. So, you know, is it ultimately just customer centricity? Is it ultimately you just kind of, is it when you're going in together and you know, we've got Bedrock, we've got Q, we've got Watson, and how do you navigate that, keep a really healthy partnership, create happy customers, and ultimately deliver on the promise of more productive and more efficient businesses?
Yeah, I mean, Deepak, you should weigh in too, but I think first and foremost it comes from what is the right answer from a technical architecture perspective from a client that will advance that agenda for them. So we talked about a number of clients that are adopting Red Hat in the data center, where how they're doing application development in the data center or at the edge, and then the ROSA service on AWS. So if they want to extend the same capabilities into the AWS environment and draw upon those services, Red Hat and IBM become the natural partner for that. And I go back to one of the conversations I had earlier with Deepak. You know, if you talk about true partnership, when he ran the container services, he did reviews with the teams, and he gave the same review and hard time to the AWS services and to the Red Hat services. And I think that's the highest form of partnership. And then it's about, you know, the right technical architecture that helps the client realize their goals. And a lot of times that'll be an IBM or Red Hat answer if it's Watson Nexus extending across environments or Red Hat extending across environments. Sometimes that's going to be a top to bottom AWS environment depending on the nature of the client problems. And again, that's back to why IBM Consulting matters, because they're often the advisors, the architects helping clients navigate that heterogeneity, because there's a lot of CIOs, CTOs that look at that heterogeneity, and it is hard to see a path through it that actually accomplishes the business goals.
Yeah, I'll add a couple more things to that. One is, it's not just the big companies, right? Even if you are a startup that maybe was born in the cloud and started, you may acquire another startup that has a different posture.
Totally.
It's just, the world is inherently messy. I think in AI in particular, the happy customer is the best answer. It's so early, nobody knows what the right answers are. They're experimenting with everything. So those hybrid mixed architectures that Roger was talking about are almost, especially for large enterprises in particular, they're kind of what they do, and they have to. So having a trusted partner, and that's where, as Roger said, IBM Consulting comes in, is how they get there in many cases. And the way they use models, which models they choose, they'll start with some trusted ones, they'll experiment with 5 others along the way, and having someone who can sort of just hold their hand and then make sure that the outcome is successful is, I think, where the partnership has really flourished, is making sure that we have successful, happy customers at the end.
I want to shift to something that is, I know, very near and dear to IBM's heart, and that's the mainframe. I mean, it's been the absolute bedrock for transactions, trusted computing for years, and many people have tried to replace certain functions and failed miserably. I've seen it, trust me, I track it as an analyst. Now we're talking about mainframe modernization between AWS and IBM, and I'm just curious, what does that mean in spirit and goals?
Again, I mean, I think this is one, we talk about the partnership working. I think to complement the AWS team, they're leaving a lot of the Amazon culture, which is really around customer centricity. So a couple of years ago, we spent time on what are the real economics of doing mainframe migration versus modernization. And mainframe is an old word, but it's a modern technology. And for the massive scale transactional workloads that cannot fail, it is the best platform to run those on. So kind of showing that journey to AWS, they actually changed the mainframe migration practice to be called modernization.
Oh, I remember that distinctly.
But that is living that client value. But then, if you work together with a customer to say, hey, listen, they've taken a lot of applications, landed on the mainframe.
Right.
Some of those they're digital applications that should be on the cloud, or AI workloads that should be on the cloud. If you take a fresh look at that and take advantage of really using the mainframe for the things it's great at, using AWS for the things it's great at,
Yes.
That's a great answer for our customers, it's a great answer for IBM, it's a great answer for AWS. And I just think it's an example of, there are folks, when I have the conversation inside of IBM, we're first saying, like, we need to partner with AWS around mainframe. That was a challenging conversation. We've really come a long way on that, and I think it's just another great example of saying there's no part in our business where we can't look at what does the customer need,
right,
and work back to the way to partner to deliver to.
Yeah. One of my favorite meetings all year, I don't know if I'd call it a meeting also, was at IBM Think earlier this year in Orlando, where Roger and I met a set of IBM customers, mostly in the financial services space, who are all mainframe customers, but also AWS customers. And that conversation, they were having it between each other on how they think about mainframe modernization and what pieces are the ones that stay on the mainframe, how they think about pulling pieces out. It was enlightening for me, and I think the fact that they're taking these, or they're adding new pieces around the mainframe on AWS, like even Lambda functions, like running against mainframe transactions. Well, a fascinating discussion to hear, like how even our customers their brains start going into overdrive as well. So, and I think, I would say of all the things that we've done together, that was actually among the first real signs that we could sit down and talk about a topic where most people would think, there's no way that twain shall meet, but it did. And I think that was great to see.
Good job, guys.
Yeah. All right, so we've only got a minute left. Kind of want to tie this together nicely and just put the what's next question out there. How does this partnership evolve, Roger?
I don't think that there's really any surprise there. It is continuing this vector, and I want to make sure it's the geometric curve, not the linear curve. I think we have so many different fronts of growth together. I guess I'd be remiss if I didn't mention our acquisition of Apptio this year, which is already a great AWS partner, and accelerating that. So I just think it's going to be more of the same, but I think so many of the things we talked about, I think the mental block of IBM and AWS being great partners together is something that a lot of the world hasn't yet understood. So the more proof points we have and the greater scale of it will help people realize just how strong this partnership is and how much it can help create value for our joint customers as well.
Yeah, the only thing I'll add to that is, I think you mentioned Marketplace earlier and how you can consume IBM software through Marketplace. For a lot of IBM customers, that's something new. Yeah. I'm looking forward to that becoming the norm for a lot of them. And the fact that when they think IBM software, they're just purchasing it as an AWS service running on AWS. We've had a great start. I think it'll explode next year. And I'm really looking forward to that.
Deepak, Roger, I want to thank you both so much for joining Patrick and I here on the 6.5. Let's do this again sometime soon.
Thank you for having us.
We
Thanks.
will. All right, guys.
All right, everybody. Hit that subscribe button. Join us for all of the episodes of the 6.5 on the road here at AWS reInvent 2023 in Las Vegas. In fact, subscribe to all of our episodes. But for this show, for this episode, for Patrick Moorhead and myself, it's time to say goodbye. See you all soon.